Have you ever caught yourself sighing in frustration, maybe about your aching knees, the weather being too hot or too cold, or the way things aren't like they used to be? Maybe you found yourself saying, "Nothing ever goes right anymore." You're not alone. I used to be that person, too. Complaining became my way of coping, even though I didn't realize it. It slipped into conversations like a habit, one that felt harmless, but deep down, it was draining the joy right out of me. Then one day, something shifted. I was sitting outside, watching the sun go down, one of those calm evenings where the sky turns gold and pink, and I realized I hadn't felt truly peaceful in a long time. I thought, when was the last time I appreciated something without finding fault in it? That moment hit me hard. I saw how often I focused on what was wrong, not what was right. And that's when I made a quiet promise to myself, I would stop complaining, even just for 1 week, and see what happened. Let me tell you, that one small decision changed everything. You see, when you stop complaining, the world doesn't suddenly become perfect. The aches, the challenges, the disappointments, they don't disappear. But something magical does happen, your perspective changes. You start to see beauty in the ordinary, gratitude in the small things, and peace where there used to be frustration. That shift doesn't just make you happier, it can actually make you healthier, calmer, and more hopeful. I know what some of you might be thinking, but I'm not complaining, I'm just being honest about how life is. That's what I used to say too. But here's the thing, there's a big difference between being realistic and being negative. When we constantly talk about what's wrong, our minds begin to look for more of it. It's like watering weeds instead of flowers. The more attention we give to problems, the bigger they feel. But when we start looking for what's good, even in small ways, we begin to see life differently. For me, the first step was simply noticing when I complained. It's surprising how automatic it can be. You spill your coffee and mutter, "Ugh, this always happens." You wake up to rain and groan, "Great, another gloomy day." You watch the news and say, "Everything's going downhill." Each small complaint chips away at our peace of mind, like little drops of poison that build up over time. Once I started noticing, I realized I had a choice. I could either keep feeding frustration, or I could pause and reframe it. So instead of saying, "It's raining again," I tried saying, "The garden will love this." Instead of grumbling about traffic, I told myself, "At least I have a car to drive." Those little shifts didn't change the weather or the traffic, but they changed me. My days started feeling lighter, calmer, even joyful. The second thing I learned was that complaining isn't just about what we say, it's about how we think. Sometimes, the loudest complaints are silent ones, running through our minds all day. Thoughts like, "I'm too old for this," or "Nothing ever works out." Those inner complaints wear us down even more than the spoken ones. When I caught myself thinking like that, I started gently correcting it. If I thought, "I'm getting too old," I'd answer myself, "Yes, I'm older, but I'm wiser, too. And I've made it this far." That small conversation in my mind slowly replaced criticism with kindness. It reminded me of something a dear friend once said after recovering from a long illness. She told me, "I used to complain that my body was failing me. Then I realized, my body's still fighting for me every single day." That touched me deeply. When we stop blaming life for what it takes away, we start appreciating what it still gives us. You might be wondering, but isn't it normal to vent a little? Of course it is. We all need to express frustration sometimes. But there's a fine line between letting something out and living in it. The problem starts when complaining becomes a lifestyle, when it shapes how we see everything. It's like wearing dark glasses that make even the brightest day look dull. Something truly beautiful happens when you take those glasses off. You begin to see small blessings everywhere. Your morning coffee tastes richer, your neighbor's smile feels warmer, even the birds outside sound like music again. Gratitude starts replacing negativity without you forcing it. You don't have to fake happiness or pretend everything's fine, you just start noticing the good that's been there all along. I remember the first miracle that happened after I made that promise to stop complaining. It wasn't anything grand or dramatic. It was a quiet morning, and I was watering my plants. Normally, I'd be grumbling about my back hurting or the mosquitoes buzzing around. But that day, I just focused on the water soaking into the soil, the scent of the flowers, the sound of the breeze. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. Pure, unshakable peace. That was my miracle. From that day on, I started realizing how powerful our words are. What we say shapes how we feel, and how we feel shapes how we live. When we speak frustration, we attract more of it. But when we speak gratitude, we open the door to healing, to joy, to miracles we never noticed before. The truth is, life after 60 can bring challenges, aches, losses, changes that aren't easy to accept. But it can also bring something far more precious, wisdom. You've lived through so many storms, and you're still standing. That alone is something to celebrate. When you stop complaining and start appreciating, you're not ignoring your pain, you're choosing not to let it define you. So maybe today, just try it for one day. Go through your day without complaining, not even once. Notice the urge to sigh or grumble, and instead, take a deep breath and look for one thing to be thankful for. It might feel awkward at first, but soon you'll notice a lightness, a quiet joy, as if the world is finally smiling back at you. Because here's the beautiful truth, when you stop complaining, you make room for gratitude. And where gratitude lives, miracles always follow. And feel that these insights are meaningful. Please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. Something truly magical happens once you begin this little experiment of not complaining. It's like waking up to a new version of life that was there all along. You just hadn't noticed it because it was hidden behind all that noise of frustration and negativity. When I made that promise to stop complaining, I didn't expect much. Honestly, I thought it was just another positive thinking idea that wouldn't last more than a day. But what surprised me was how quickly my surroundings began to change, or at least, how I saw them change. The first week, I realized how contagious complaining really is. I noticed that every time someone around me started complaining about their health, the government, their kids, it was almost automatic for me to join in. I'd nod, agree, and add my own little story of dissatisfaction. But once I made the choice to stop, I started noticing how heavy those conversations felt. It was like carrying a bag of stones everywhere I went, and for what? It didn't make me feel better, it didn't fix anything. It only made my heart heavier. So, instead of joining in, I began responding differently. When a friend said, "My knees hurt all the time," I didn't add my own complaint about my back. I said, "I get that, but at least we're still moving. Some people can't even get out of bed." You'd be amazed at how that small shift in words can completely change the energy of a conversation. Instead of sinking into misery together, you lift each other up. And after a while, people around you start noticing the difference too. Some even start to mirror your attitude. They begin to look for the good instead of the bad. I remember one morning, I met my neighbor, Martha. She's in her 70s and always loved to chat by the mailbox. Normally, our talks would spiral into complaints about the rising grocery prices, the doctor's long wait times, or how the world isn't what it used to be. But that day, when she started listing all the things that bothered her, I just smiled and said, "True, but you know, my roses bloomed early this year. Maybe the weather's not all bad." She paused for a second, smiled back, and said, "You know what, mine did too." And just like that, our talk turned into something lighter, more joyful. That's the thing about gratitude, it's contagious too, but in the best possible way. The second lesson I learned was how deeply complaining affects our health. You see, every time we complain, our body reacts as if it's under threat. Our heart rate goes up, our stress hormones rise, and we tense up without realizing it. It's like putting your body on constant alert, even when there's no real danger. Over time, that stress adds up. It can make your immune system weaker, disturb your sleep, and even make pain feel worse than it is. When I started replacing my complaints with gratitude, my body felt it first. My shoulders relaxed. I slept better. Even my digestion improved, probably because I wasn't carrying that invisible weight of frustration every day. It's amazing how our minds and bodies are connected. What you feed your thoughts with eventually shows up in your physical health. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. How can peace live in a body that's always complaining? Now, I'm not saying you'll never face tough moments. Life after 60 brings its share of challenges. Sometimes your body doesn't cooperate the way it used to, or the people you love move away or grow distant. But here's the powerful thing, you can still choose your response. Complaining gives your power away. Gratitude takes it back. There's a story I'll never forget about a man I met at a local park. He was 82, sitting on a bench, feeding the pigeons. We started talking, and he told me he lost his wife 3 years earlier after 50 years of marriage. My heart sank. I could see the sadness in his eyes. But then he smiled and said, "I miss her every day, but I thank God every morning for those 50 years we had." Some people never get that kind of love. I'll never forget that. He wasn't pretending not to feel pain, he just chose to focus on the gift instead of the loss. That's not denial, that's wisdom. The third lesson that changed my life was realizing how complaining keeps you stuck in the past, while gratitude keeps you grounded in the present. When we complain, we're usually replaying old frustrations, what someone said, what didn't go our way, what should have been different. But the past is over, it can't be fixed by words. The present, however, can be transformed by attention. When I learned to shift my focus to what's happening now, the taste of my tea, the warmth of the sun, the sound of laughter, life felt fuller, more real. I started a small morning ritual that helped me stay in that mindset. Before getting out of bed, I'd say 3 things I was grateful for. Sometimes it was big things, like my health. Other times, it was simple, like the smell of breakfast cooking or hearing birds outside my window. That small act set the tone for my entire day. It trained my brain to look for blessings before problems. And the more I looked, the more I found. It's funny, once you stop complaining, you also start noticing how unnecessary so many worries are. We spend so much time fighting small battles that don't even matter a week later. But gratitude gives you perspective. It teaches you that life isn't about having everything perfect, it's about finding peace in what is. I often say this, happiness doesn't come from a life without problems. It comes from a heart without complaints. You can have health issues, money struggles, or even loneliness, but if you keep your heart open to gratitude, life still feels rich. You might not realize it yet, but when you stop complaining, the people around you start to feel it too. You bring light into the room. You become calmer, kinder, easier to be around. People notice that. They may not say it, but they feel it. And that light you carry starts to spread to your family, your friends, even strangers you meet in passing. That's the quiet miracle that happens when you let go of negativity. You don't just heal yourself, you help heal others, too. When you live with less complaint and more appreciation, life becomes simpler. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop wishing things were different. You begin to see that, right here and now, you have more than enough. More love than you thought, more beauty than you noticed, more strength than you realized. And little by little, those miracles, the ones you thought were reserved for other people, start to find their way to you, too. Sometimes, the miracles that come when you stop complaining aren't big or dramatic. They don't always look like winning the lottery or getting a second chance at youth. Most of the time, they're quiet, almost invisible at first. It's waking up one morning and realizing you feel lighter. It's noticing that the little things that used to bother you, the neighbor's barking dog, the traffic noise, the ache in your knee, don't weigh on you quite as much. It's that sense of peace that creeps in slowly, like sunlight through a curtain. You don't even realize it's happening until one day you catch yourself smiling for no reason at all. I remember talking to a woman named Ellen at a community gathering. She was 74, and she told me something that stuck with me ever since. She said, I used to complain about everything, my husband snoring, my kids not calling, my joints hurting, you name it. Then one day, my doctor told me I had high blood pressure and stress was making it worse. He didn't give me another pill. Instead, he said, try complaining less. I thought he was joking, but I tried it. And I swear, that advice saved me. She smiled as she said it. Once I stopped focusing on everything wrong, I realized how much was still right. My husband still makes me laugh, my kids are busy but they love me, and my legs may hurt, but they still carry me around. Life's a lot better when you stop keeping score of what's missing. That's the heart of it. Complaining keeps us counting problems, gratitude helps us see blessings. And when we shift our focus, even just a little, life begins to cooperate with us again. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to change old habits. Complaining can become as automatic as breathing, especially when you've spent years feeling like the world's moving faster than you can keep up with. But every habit can be unlearned. The secret is to start noticing it, to become aware of the words you speak and the thoughts you repeat. You see, complaining doesn't just come out of our mouths, it starts in our minds. It begins with a single thought, why does this always happen to me, or nothing ever goes right? The moment you catch that thought, you have a choice. You can feed it, or you can replace it. One small way to do this is by flipping the question. Instead of why does this always happen to me, try asking, what can I learn from this, or how can I handle this better next time? That little mental shift changes your whole emotional state. And with time, you start to realize that so much of what you complained about wasn't even worth the energy. Life after 60 teaches you that time is precious, too precious to waste on things you can't control. If someone cuts you off in traffic, let it go. If your coffee spills, wipe it up and make another cup. If your neighbor forgets to say hello, maybe they're having a hard day. The more you practice letting go, the lighter you'll feel, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Another miracle that happens when you stop complaining is that your relationships begin to heal. When you constantly complain, even about small things, it pushes people away, not because they don't care, but because negativity is draining. But when you replace complaints with kindness, patience, or even silence, people are drawn to you again. They feel safe, calm, and inspired by your energy. A man named David once shared something powerful with me. He said, I used to complain about my wife all the time, about her cooking, her habits, everything. Then after she passed away, I'd have given anything to hear her humming in the kitchen again. That's when I realized how foolish I'd been. I spent years complaining instead of appreciating. I learned my lesson the hard way, now I try to never take people for granted. His words hit me deeply. Sometimes, we only understand the value of something after it's gone. But we don't have to wait for loss to wake us up, we can start appreciating right now. When you stop complaining, you open your heart to gratitude, and gratitude is like fertilizer for happiness. The more you use it, the faster joy grows. Think about it, when was the last time you sat quietly and simply said thank you for something small? For the morning light that warms your face, for the meal on your table, for the breath in your lungs? These small moments of gratitude, repeated daily, can heal your heart more deeply than any medicine ever could. You might be thinking, that all sounds nice, but what about when life really is hard? And that's a fair question. Because, yes, there are times when life tests you, illness, loss, loneliness, regret. In those moments, it's not about pretending everything's fine. It's about finding one tiny thing, even just one, that you can still be thankful for. Maybe it's the memory of someone you loved. Maybe it's a good meal. Maybe it's simply that you made it through another day. Gratitude doesn't erase pain, but it makes it bearable. It helps you hold on to hope, and hope is what keeps the soul alive. I once read a quote that said, "You can't complain your way into a better life." And it's true. Complaints trap you where you are, but gratitude moves you forward. It invites peace, and peace invites healing. Every time you choose to stay silent instead of complaining, you're taking back your power. Every time you choose to smile instead of criticize, you're creating space for joy. And every time you look for something good, no matter how small, you are proving to yourself that happiness is still possible, even in the smallest corners of life. Little by little, you begin to notice miracles everywhere. The way your mood lifts when you focus on kindness. The way your body relaxes when you stop feeding it stress. The way people respond differently to you, with more warmth, more respect, more love. These are the quiet signs that your life is changing from the inside out. Because that's the real miracle, not that life suddenly becomes perfect, but that you begin to see it differently. And once your vision changes, everything else follows. Thank you for spending time with us today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned from this video and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your insights mean a lot to us and give us the motivation to keep spreading positivity and practical advice. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone you care about. Your support truly helps us continue creating meaningful content that informs, inspires, and uplifts. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.